up with the gang on TV, bro? So I can cut to the reaction. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. Listen, fam, we got what are the origins of the black ghetto culture in America? Thomas Sowell, the great Thomas Sowell.
Tommy.
I'm hyped, fam. We ain't did a Thomas Sowell video in a minute because when we was doing his shit, they was getting blocked and age restricted because they don't want y'all to hear the truth. You feel me? But shit, we finna try again because we fuck with Thomas Sowell shit and this is super educational. You feel me? So we finna listen to this, bro. Origins of the ghetto culture. Let's get it.
Talk to me nice.
Talk to me nice. The ghetto.
These people are creating a terrible problem in our cities. They can't or won't hold a job. They flout the law constantly and neglect their children. They drink too much, and their moral standards would shame an alley cat. For some reason or other, they absolutely refuse to accommodate themselves to any kind of decent, civilized life. This was said in 1956 in Indianapolis, not about blacks or other minorities, but about poor whites from the South. Nor was Indianapolis unique in this respect. A 1951 survey in Detroit found that white Southerners living there were considered undesirable by 21% of those surveyed, compared to 13% who ranked blacks the same way.
This, like, that shit instantly made me think of when we watched Thomas Sowell video last time, and it was about slavery, and how they was talking about, like, how all the countries did slavery, and basically what they preyed on wasn't about color, it was about power and money. And so that shit made me think of instantly whenever he said, like, that they said it about those white people.
Yeah.
Because they was poor.
And a lot of people say that
That shit is crazy.
white people were slaves first and stuff like that. I've seen a lot of people say that. But I don't know, you know?
Did a video on that shit.
Yeah.
Was surveyed, compared to 13% who ranked blacks the same way. In the late 1940s, a Chicago employer said frankly, "I told the guard at the plant gate to tell the hillbillies that there were no openings." When poor whites from the South moved into northern cities to work in war plants during the Second World War, occasionally a white Southerner would find that a flat or a furnished room had just been rented when the landlord heard his Southern accent. More is involved here than a mere parallel between blacks and Southern whites. What is involved is a common subculture that goes back for centuries, which has encompassed everything from ways of talking to attitudes toward education, violence, and sex, and which originated not in the South, but in those parts of the British Isles from which white Southerners came. That culture long ago died out where it originated in Britain, while surviving in the American South. Then it largely died out among both white and black Southerners, while still surviving today in the poorest and worst of the urban black ghettos. It is not uncommon for a culture to survive longer where it is transplanted and to retain characteristics lost in its place of origin. The French spoken in Quebec and the Spanish spoken in Mexico contain words and phrases that have long since become archaic in France and Spain. Regional...
That's crazy, bro. That shit is crazy, fam. That shit just comes with, like, generational change, fam. Like,
Right.
culture changes over time.
Exactly.
Like, not the same people live there. Like, people move in, move out. Like, culture changes and shit.
People create like those type of same cultures, but the family's moving somewhere and creating a family somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Should just be starting up different places.
Like, that shit made me, like, think of how there used to be, like in California, there was a bunch of, like, Asian people, like, Oriental people. Like, back in the day and shit, just based off, like, how people moved and shit, bro. It was just the way people came to America. Like, when America was founded and shit, so different cultures exist in different places and
People
shit.
got pushed out and shit.
Right, but at the same time, those countries and those people that have came here have since evolved, so they no longer are moving in that same way. So, like, that shit is dead where it originated from, but yet that shit still lives here. That shit is crazy, bro.
Came here for better type shit.
Right.
in words and phrases that have long since become archaic in France and Spain. Regional German dialects persisted among Germans living in the United States after those dialects had begun to die out in Germany itself. A scholar specializing in the history of the South has likewise noted among white Southerners archaic word forms, while another scholar has pointed out the continued use in that region of terms that were familiar at the time of the first Queen Elizabeth.
Oh, wow.
The card game whist is today played almost exclusively by blacks, especially low-income blacks, though in the 18th century it was played by the British upper classes and has since then evolved into bridge. The history of the evolution of this game is indicative of a much broader pattern of cultural evolution in much more weighty things. Southern whites not only spoke the English language in very different ways from whites in other regions. Their churches, their roads, their homes, their music, their education, their food, and their sex lives were all sharply different from those of other whites. The history of this redneck or cracker culture is more than a curiosity. It has contemporary significance because of its influence on the economic and social evolution of vast numbers of people, millions of blacks and whites, and its continuing influence on the lives and deaths of a residual population in America's black ghettos, which has still not completely escaped from that culture. From early in American history...
That's a fact, bro. That shit is crazy. That shit is crazy, bro. Like, the ghetto culture... Bro, he basically saying that shit originated out of Britain, fam.
That's when it started.
Like, a lot of the ideologies and, like, the way people move, games they play and shit, like, that's where that shit came from.
Nigga.
Right, and they came from Southern Britain and shit. That shit is nuts.
Still not completely escaped from that culture. From early in American history, foreign visitors and domestic travelers alike were struck by cultural contrasts between the white population of the South and that of the rest of the country in general, and of New England in particular. In the early 19th century, Alexis de Tocqueville contrasted white Southerners with white Northerners in his classic Democracy in America, and Frederick Law Olmsted did the same later in his books about his travels through the antebellum South, notably Cotton Kingdom. De Tocqueville set a pattern when he concluded that almost all the differences which may be noticed between the Americans in the southern and in the northern states have originated in slavery. Olmsted likewise attributed the differences between white Southerners and white Northerners to the existence of slavery in the South. So did widely read antebellum Southern writer Hinton Helper, who declared that slavery, and nothing but slavery, has retarded the progress and prosperity of our portion of the Union. Just as they explained regional differences between whites by slavery, so many others in a later era would explain differences between blacks and whites nationwide by slavery. Plausible as these explanations may seem in both cases, they will not stand up under a closer scrutiny of history. It is perhaps understandable that the great overwhelming moral curse of slavery has presented a tempting causal explanation of the peculiar subculture of Southern whites, as well as that of blacks. Yet this same subculture had existed among Southern whites and their ancestors in those parts of the British Isles from which they came, long before they had ever seen a black slave. The nature of this subculture, among people who were called rednecks and crackers in Britain before they ever saw America, needs to be explored before turning to the question of its current status among ghetto blacks and how developments in the larger society have affected its evolution.
Late, great
That shit crazy.
Thomas Sowell, bro. I love watching his shit, bro.
He broke that down good.
Bro, his shit's so, like, easy to understand, bro. He's very, like, educational, informational, bro. I like his shit. And I like his shit because he talks from, like, he's not really biased, bro. He just talks from an education, like, just what he knows, bro, about history.
Right.
He don't, like, sway one way or put his personal opinion into that shit really at all.
When I'm watching it, I'm just watching his opinion. I'm not really, like... Because I didn't heard it all type of ways. I'm just hearing that shit. And I like it, though. I like... His shit make a lot of sense at the end of the day.
Right, because what I got out of the video was how, like, basically a lot of the ideologies of, like, black ghetto culture came from Britain.
And Britain was white Southerners.
Right. That's where they originated from. And they were called crackers and all that shit way back then, whereas today that shit is perceived as being developed in the black culture, like in the ghetto culture.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But like what he was saying is basically everything that we've learned today has already been done, bro. This shit been passed down for years and years and years. Now that shit probably didn't originate here, but that shit was brought here one way or another, and it's stuck here, whereas that shit died off in other countries where it originated from.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. That was a really great video. I enjoyed that a lot.
Me too. That was a good one.
Hey, bro, let us know what y'all thought about that video, bro. If y'all got another Tom Sowell educational video, bro, please drop that shit in the comments. Like it on your way out. We love each and every single one of y'all. Make sure you subscribe. Road to 20K. OTB, bro. We out, gang.